When I opened my eyes again, I was back in a university classroom. She in the front row wore plain clothes, her cheeks pale from malnutrition. This girl had once exhausted everything I had, then personally shoved me into the abyss. This time, I would only watch coldly as she repeated the same mistakes. Anyway, all those heart-wrenching cries were nothing but jokes from my past life. When she fainted from hunger at the dormitory door, I didn't even blink. I actually want to see how she'll climb that high branch without my flesh and blood sustaining her. I've been reborn. The moment consciousness returned, a wave of nausea churned through my stomach. I leaned on the desk, my fingernails nearly digging into the coarse wood grain. My gaze passed over dozens of young heads and locked firmly on the thin figure in the front row. Sophia Taylor. She was attentively listening to the lecture, occasionally lowering her head, using a pen that was nearly out of ink to jot something in a yellowing notebook. That earnest yet fragile posture used to be the most beautiful sight to me. Now, it only feels ironic. The flashback images pierce sharply into my mind. Cold handcuffs and flashing police lights made my disheveled face look deathly pale. Not far away, Sophia was snuggled in the arms of a man called Ryan Grant. Her gaze crossed the crowd to look at me, devoid of warmth, as if staring at discarded trash. Ryan, that arrogant, rich, second-generation brat, had his arm around her waist and blew a disdainful smoke ring at me. Lowly people, worthy of competing with me. I was sentenced to prison for leaking trade secrets, taking the fall for all of Sophia's and Ryan's crimes. In prison, I was beaten to death. As my soul drifted, I saw Sophia use the compensation money my parents received to buy herself a designer bag, smiling radiantly as she climbed into Ryan's sports car. My parents went white-haired overnight, spending the family's fortune running around for me, and in the end they only received a cold corpse. The warmth in my eyes has completely faded, leaving only an icy hatred forged in the hellfire of karma. The bell rings for the end of class, and the crowd begins to stir. I remain motionless, like a statue, until Sophia finished packing and, as in every previous life, walked up to me with just the right amount of timidity and hesitation. She was wearing a dress washed to paleness, which made her cheeks look even paler and pitiable. She bit her lower lip and spoke softly. "Ethan, I lost my meal card, and there's still this month's living allowance on it. Could you lend me $10 so I could have dinner?" Her voice was thin and weak, trembling, enough to stir any man's protective instincts. In my past life, it was this very look that drained me of everything. I not only gave her the only $50 I had, but I also ran all over half the city doing side jobs, just so she could have a decent meal. I was an adult baby, toyed around by her. This time, I looked into those carefully calculated, tear-filled eyes of hers, and felt nothing inside. I stood up. My 1.8-meter frame cast a shadow over her. Then I stepped around her and walked past. Not a single word. One step, two steps. I could clearly feel the stunned gaze behind me, like a barbed thorn piercing into me. She probably never imagined that Ethan, who obeyed her every command, would treat her this way. "Ethan, what's wrong with you?" My roommate fatty, Leo Martinez, ran up and bumped my shoulder, looking puzzled. "Sophia's talking to you. Weren't you always the one who cared about her the most? Look at her. She probably doesn't even have money to eat again." I tugged at the corner of my mouth. The curve was icy. People change. Leo froze, about to say something, but I pulled him and walked away. That night, I didn't go back to the dorm. I went to an internet cafe off campus and poured all my living expenses, plus the few $1,000s cashed out through loan apps, into a cryptocurrency I remembered was about to skyrocket. This was the first step of my revenge plan. No money. What could I use to fight a behemoth like the Grant family? At midnight, I returned to the dormitory building. From a distance, I could see a group of people gathered there. I snorted inwardly. They're here. I went closer and, sure enough, saw Sophia lying on the ground, eyes tightly shut and her face frighteningly pale. Someone beside her was pinching the area between her nose and upper lip, and someone else was shouting to call an ambulance. That's Sophia from the literature department, right? Seems she fainted from low blood sugar. Where's her boyfriend? I think he's Ethan from the computer science department, right? Why isn't he here? I saw them together this afternoon. It looked like Ethan ignored her and just left. No way. That cruel? Look at Sophia. She probably hasn't eaten all day. The gossip buzzed into my ears like flies. I walked expressionless through gaps in the crowd, swiped my card without looking away, and entered the dormitory building. A murmur of surprise came from behind me. My God, isn't that Ethan? How could he just leave like that? Not even a glance? How heartless. I didn't care. I would like to see it. Without my flesh and blood to sustain her, how would she, Sophia, survive this night alone? And how would she climb up to that high branch she has been dreaming of? Anyway, those heart-wrenching cries were just jokes I had heard in my previous life. The next day, I became a celebrity at school. On the campus forum's front page floated a bright red bold headline. Shocking. Campus beauty Sophia faints from hunger downstairs in the dormitory. Devoted boyfriend Ethan turns a blind eye and walks away. Is this a distortion of human nature or a collapse of morality? Hundreds of comments filled the thread. First comment. Front row. I was there last night. Ethan really did just walk right past Sophia. Didn't even blink. Second comment. No way. For real? Isn't Ethan known for being a simp? The kind who'd pour his heart out for Sophia. Third comment. You never know someone's true colors. Sophia is such a good girl, pretty and hardworking, just from a poor family. How could Ethan be so heartless to her? Fourth floor. Don't talk nonsense upstairs. I heard Sophia usually strings Ethan along. Maybe Ethan finally woke up. Fifth floor. Even if he woke up, he can't just watch someone starve and faint, right? That's not a man at all. Insults, guesses, defenses, all sorts of voices mixed together. I scroll the phone screen, my face betraying no expression. These self-righteous claims of justice, this cheap sympathy, strike me as utterly laughable. Which of you knows that the pretty and hard-working good girl you speak of with such praise was the one who personally sent me to hell? Ethan, these bastards sure know how to talk nonsense. Want me to go up and argue with them? Leo leaned over for a look, his face flushed with anger. In my past life, he defended me like that, and I ended up treating him as if he were just jealous of me having a girlfriend like Sophia. I patted his shoulder and turned off my phone. No need, I said calmly. Just wait and watch the show. Leo looked utterly bewildered, but I didn't explain further. I opened my computer and logged into the cryptocurrency trading platform. Overnight, the few $1,000s I had put in had already quintupled. I didn't hesitate for a moment. I sold everything and then put the funds into another volatile stock I remembered was about to take off. Rebirth is my greatest weapon, and information asymmetry is the first blade I plunge into my enemies. At noon, I was just about to go to the cafeteria with Leo when someone stopped me at the corner of the academic building. Sophia. She had changed into a clean set of clothes. Her complexion was still pale, but her expression was no longer the pitiful look from yesterday. She stared at me intently, her gaze like two sharp probes trying to pierce into my mind. Ethan. She spoke, her voice flat, without the usual pretense. You're back too, right? In that moment, my heart clenched sharply. The air around seemed to solidify. I had imagined countless scenarios of confronting her again, but this was the one I never once considered. She was reborn too. This realization detonated in my mind like a thunderclap. No wonder that after the way I treated her yesterday, she didn't continue the sobbing performance today and instead chose to lay her cards on the table with me. So the hunter wasn't just me. After a brief shock, I quickly calmed down. So what if it is? My confession turned the tentative look in her eyes into fervor in an instant. Fantastic. Ethan, I knew it. She stepped forward excitedly, trying to grab my arm, but I sidestepped and avoided her. She didn't care and went on by herself. Ethan, let's join forces. We both have memories of the future. We are the gods of this world. What Ryan, what rich second-generation heirs. We can crush them all under our feet. Her eyes sparkled, lost in the blissful future of her own fantasy. We can buy up every stock that's going to skyrocket. We can position ourselves ahead of every upcoming trend. We can become superior people and never have to live these humbling, poverty-stricken lives where we curry favor with others again. She sketched out the blueprint as if she had already forgotten that in my previous life I took the blame for her and how brightly she laughed in Ryan's arms. She had forgotten how my parents were pushed into despair because of her. She had forgotten how I was miserably killed in a cold prison. In her eyes, I was neither a lover she had betrayed nor a life she had destroyed. I am just a tool like her, usable and endowed with a profit function, a partner to team up with, the best candidate to help her retire and escape poverty. I looked at her face, flushed from excitement, and felt utterly absurd. I spoke each word, my voice calm and without ripples. Do you think you deserve it? 5 words, like 5 basins of ice water, poured over the blaze of her fervor. The smile on her face froze instantly. Ethan, what do you mean? She said, staring at me in disbelief. Don't you want to get back at Ryan? Don't you want to stand back up? Teaming up is the best option. Getting back at Ryan is my business. I looked at her coldly. And you, Sophia, are also on my list of people to get back at. We were never teammates. It's the hunter and the prey. After saying that, I turned and walked away, not giving her any chance to speak. Sophia was left frozen in place, her face flushing from red to pale, then to a sickly green. I could feel the calculation and fervor in her eyes completely turn into venomous resentment. Very good. That's more like it. The ultimate game of hunter and prey swapping identities is only now truly beginning. I'm no longer the ladder she clings to. I'm the only guide leading her to the abyss. I know that after I refused her, Sophia won't let it go peacefully. Since she couldn't use me, her only option was to follow the script from her previous life and get close to Ryan ahead of time. Reborn twice. The only difference this time was that she would act earlier and with more urgency. And I knew her script inside out. In her last life, her first official meeting with Ryan took place at the fanciest Western restaurant near the school, Rosemary. She would deliberately work there, and when Ryan showed up, she would put on a scene of being tormented by customers, yet remaining resilient, successfully catching Ryan's attention. That time, I was still a fool, waiting in the dormitory hungry for her to finish work, bringing her a steaming late-night meal. It seems ridiculous now. This life, she would surely play the same trick again. And what I must do is strike her the hardest blow when she is at her most triumphant. The first money I made with virtual currency was about $20,000, and I took out half of it in cash. Then I called Leo. Leo, are you free tonight? Get the 3rd and 4th guys from the dorm. My treat. Let's go to Rosemary for a meal. Leo let out a shout on the other end of the line. Holy crap. Ethan, did you get rich? Rosemary, that place costs several $100s per person. Cut the crap. Are you coming or not? I'm coming. Of course I'm coming. Even if it rained knives from the sky, I'd come. At 7 that evening, I swaggered into Rosemary with my 3 roommates. Soft jazz flowed through the restaurant, the lights dim, the atmosphere just right. I spotted Ryan dining alone in the corner at a glance. He sat by himself, slouched in a leisurely posture, but his eyes were like an eagle's, scanning the room for tonight's prey. And Sophia, dressed in a server's uniform, was busy not far away, occasionally casting glances toward Ryan from the corner of her eye. Everything was exactly like the script. I asked the waiter to seat us at the table next to Ryan, then ordered the priciest dishes the restaurant had. Leo and the others had never seen a scene like this. They rubbed their hands excitedly and whispered, "Ethan, did you hit the jackpot?" I smiled, said nothing, only lower my voice. "There's going to be a show in a bit. Don't blink." Sure enough, before long, the show began. Sophia carried a tray of red wine and walked toward Ryan's table. Then, as if rehearsed 1,000 times, she accidentally slipped, and the whole tray of red wine, without missing a drop, spilled all over her white server uniform. The sharp, piercing sound of breaking glass instantly drew everyone's attention. The restaurant manager rushed over immediately and unleashed a harsh torrent of scolding at Sophia. "Sophia, what are you doing? Playing around like that? Do you know how much that bottle costs? We couldn't even cover it if we sold you." Sophia's eyes went red in an instant. She hung her head, bit her lip hard, her body trembling slightly, looking deeply wrong yet stubbornly refusing to bow her head. I saw the corner of Ryan's mouth already curl into an interested smile. This was his favorite scene. Hero saves the beauty, rescuing a seemingly fragile, but actually thorny, white lotus. He was about to stand and say the line I'd heard in my past life. "It's fine. This bottle of wine is on me." At that very moment, I stood up before him. I walked over to Sophia, my voice neither too loud nor too soft, just enough for the whole dining hall to hear clearly. "It's okay. This student comes from a poor family. Working while studying is not easy," I said as I pulled a thick stack of $100 bills from my wallet, at least $3,000, and shoved them straight into the stunned restaurant manager's hand. "I've paid for the bottle and for this student's uniform cleaning. The rest can be considered compensation for her emotional distress." My posture was even more debonair and lavish than the hero saving the beauty Ryan had imagined. The whole restaurant fell silent. Everyone's gaze shifted from Sophia to my face. The lines Ryan had prepared got stuck in his throat. He looked at me, then at Sophia, his expression tinged with scrutiny and displeasure. As for Sophia, her face flushed crimson in an instant. Her carefully crafted script of a tough little white flower being bullied by villains and rescued by a prince was pierced by my offhand financial difficulties, stripping away all the beautiful pretenses and turning it into a bare, pitiable label of poverty that demanded sympathy and charity. She wanted to refuse my money, but she also knew very well she couldn't possibly afford to buy back that expensive bottle of red wine. All she could do was, under everyone's watchful eyes, endure the humiliation of watching me bail her out. That feeling was more unbearable than slapping her in the face. "I'm not finished." I gave Leo a look. Leo immediately caught on. He has a loud voice and deliberately raised it. "Ethan, you're just soft-hearted. Why bother with a woman who would do anything for money? She borrowed money from you last time and turned around and bought new lipstick. I saw it with my own eyes." Leo's words were half true, half false, but utterly devastating. The surrounding guests began to whisper among themselves. "So that's what kind of person he is. He looks so innocent. Who would have thought?" I could clearly see the teasing sneer at the corner of Ryan's mouth. The way he looked at Sophia had completely shifted from prowling for a conquest to viewing a jumping fool as a joke. For someone like Ryan, he could toy with poor girls, but he absolutely could not tolerate a manipulative gold digger who treated him like an idiot. Sophia's first attempt at climbing the social ladder ended in failure before it truly began. I cut off her last resort. She stood where she was, with accusations and stares coming from all directions, her body trembling like a leaf in the autumn wind. She looked at me, the malice in her eyes almost congealing into something tangible. I returned her smile. Then she turned back to her seat and said to Leo and the others, "Come on, mind your own business and eat." Sophia's first strike ended in a crushing defeat. She was even less composed than I had imagined. No wonder. In her previous life, everything went smoothly and I cherished her. She had never suffered the humiliation of being publicly exposed like this. The advantage of being reborn twice, for her, became a poison that pushed her toward madness. She was unwilling to accept it. With the chance encounter, route blocked by me, she chose a more direct and riskier path, casting bait. I knew she held a business secret I had accidentally revealed to her in my previous life. An obscure small tech project would be bought out next week at a high price by the internet giant Clouds Group, and once the news broke, its related virtual token would surge threefold. In my previous life, I made a little money off the fringes of that information, then gave it all to Sophia so she could buy pretty clothes and cosmetics and fit into the circle she longed for. Now, that secret became her last lifeline. Sure enough, within a couple of days I heard that Sophia, through various connections, had finally gotten Ryan's contact information and had successfully met with him. She didn't play those little girl games anymore. She went straight to her ace. I know of a project that's going to be acquired by Cloud's Group next week. Buy in now, and you can make at least 3 times your money. I could almost picture the desperate, all-or-nothing look on her face when she said it. Who is Ryan? A genius among geniuses. Of course, he wouldn't readily believe a free lunch that had been handed to him. Half convinced but still wary, he sent someone to investigate. The investigation showed that the project had indeed been in frequent contact with Cloud's Group recently. It really did look like there were signs of an acquisition. This tempted Ryan, but he was still very cautious. Heirs from such prominent families are naturally suspicious, and I intended to give him that final certainty myself, to push him into the trap I had dug for him. I asked Leo to do me a favor. I gave him $5,000 to take Ryan's usual group of drinking buddies to the upscale bar Ryan frequents. Then, pretending to be drunk, he accidentally let slip a piece of news. I always trust Leo to handle things. That night, Leo drank until his face was flushed at the bar, arms slung around a wealthy second generation who was close to Ryan, slurring and bragging. I'll tell you a secret. My buddy Ethan has been on a roll lately. He somehow got insider info, saying Clouds is going to buy some crappy project. So he put his living expenses, his scholarship, even his damn underwear, everything, on the line. He's waiting to get rich. Leo's acting was exaggerated, but paired with his flushed face and the script of a poor student suddenly rich, it was highly believable. This news quickly reached Ryan's ears. Ryan completely believed it. In his view, Sophia, being a poor student, had limited access to information. Perhaps she was just repeating hearsay. But Ethan, that poor rival of mine, that fool who would gnaw on steam buns for a week to save a few dollars, actually pawned everything and rushed in. That can only mean the source of the news is absolutely reliable enough that even someone like Ethan at the bottom received word. This is a typical cognitive blind spot. The higher up someone is, the more likely they are to believe in so-called grassroots information, thinking that's the most genuine and unvarnished. Ryan no longer hesitated. Not only did he invest a huge sum himself, he mobilized his circle to go along on the project together. He treated it as a sure win hunt. After it succeeded, he promised Sophia a fortune large enough to secure her livelihood for the rest of her life, and, furthermore, formally brought her into his circle. For a time, Sophia was unrivaled in glamour. She moved out of that shabby girl's dormitory and into a luxury apartment, putting on designer clothes. She thought she had finally seized fate by the throat and successfully crossed class boundaries. She even deliberately came to show off to me once. That day I had just gotten out of class. She pulled up in a red Mini Cooper, rolled down the window, wearing sunglasses and flaming red lipstick. "Ethan, do you see? This is the gap that choices make." Her tone was full of a victor's posture. "You're staying up late for a few $1,000s in scholarship, while I am about to enter a world you don't even have the right to gaze up at. You refusing to join forces with me back then was the most foolish decision you've ever made." I looked at her face, filled with desire and vanity, and replied calmly, "Is that so? I'll be waiting to see." My calm offended her. It was like a punch that landed on cotton. She snorted coldly, hit the gas, and sped off. I watched her car vanish, my gaze icy. She didn't know. This project, indeed, in my previous life, it was acquired by Cloud's Group. But in this life, I won't let it go so smoothly. On the night before the acquisition announcement, an explosive piece of news suddenly swept through the entire financial world. The project's founder was publicly accused of academic fraud, and the patents for its core technology were alleged to involve serious plagiarism. The whistleblower was me. The evidence was something I used the knowledge from my rebirth to find with ease. I anonymously compiled all the evidence and sent it to a dozen mainstream financial media outlets and regulatory agencies. A single stone stirred up 1,000 waves. The scandal broke as expected, and the project stock instantly collapsed, hitting the daily limit in less than an hour. Cloud's group issued an overnight announcement terminating the acquisition plan. Everyone who went long on this project was tightly trapped at the peak. Ryan put in the most money and suffered the heaviest losses. It said he directly evaporated 9 figures in US dollars. The whole second-generation rich circle was wailing. Ryan was so furious that he smashed his most cherished antique vase on the spot. He was furious. No matter how he tried, he couldn't understand how a nailed-down deal could suddenly undergo such a staggering reversal. To him, this was definitely not an accident. Someone had set a trap behind the scenes, and the one who passed him the message, Sophia, together with that other all-in Ethan, were the prime suspects. He thought he'd been played by Sophia and Ethan teaming up. A storm was about to break, and I just sat at the computer, stared at that green candlestick plummeting off a cliff, and took a sip of ice water. The show has begun. I'm looking forward to seeing how Ryan's fury will be directed at his so-called clever hero, Sophia. Ryan's revenge came more directly and brutally than I had imagined. He had no patience for schemes. Losing over $100 million in funds tore away all his cultivated gentleness, revealing the violence and madness in his bones. The next day, on the tree-lined walkway of the school, bustling with people, Ryan stopped Sophia. Sophia was still wearing her newly bought Chanel suit and carrying her Hermes bag, thinking Ryan had come to discuss a plan with her. Instead, what greeted her was a resounding slap. Smack! The sound was so crisp that half the campus could hear it. Sophia was completely stunned, covering her face and looking at Ryan in disbelief. Ryan, what are you doing? What am I doing? Ryan's eyes were bloodshot, like an enraged beast. You bitch. How dare you team up with that poor bastard Ethan to play me? He grabbed Sophia by the hair and shoved her hard to the ground. The designer handbag fell to the ground, covered in mud. Aren't you so capable? Could predict the future, right? How the hell did you not predict you'd end up like a dog under my feet? Ryan's roar drew the attention of every passing student. Phone cameras, like countless black holes, were pointed at the disheveled Sophia. Ryan was still not satisfied. He publicly exposed Sophia's glorious deeds. Everyone, come look. This is our school's infamous gold digger, Sophia. She thinks that with a little gossip, she can suddenly soar and become a phoenix. But she ended up costing me $1 billion. This kind of bitch who would sell her face for money. Stay away from her. She's bad luck. Ryan's words were like knives, publicly flaying Sophia's pride and dignity. Sophia collapsed on the ground, her face ashen, her whole body trembling. She fell from the clouds in an instant, plunging into the dirtiest puddle. Ryan didn't stop. He spread Sophia's disgrace all over the rich second-generation circle. Overnight, Sophia went from a would-be phoenix about to marry into a wealthy family to a pariah everyone despised, a jinx who brought misfortune. No one dared approach her anymore. The apartment landlord threw her out, and her designer clothes and bag were taken back by people Ryan sent. She was once again left with nothing, even worse off than before. Because her reputation was ruined, and the path of clinging to the wealthy had been completely blocked by me, I knew that, with nowhere left to turn, she would come to me. Sure enough, that night in the dead of night, she blocked me downstairs at the dormitory. She appeared like a ghost, darting out from a dark corner, her eyes bloodshot and her hair disheveled. Not a trace of her former delicacy remained. She was like a mad dog driven to the brink. Ethan! She lowered her voice and hissed, screaming, filled with a reckless kind of madness. You did this. You did all of this, didn't you? I watched her, neither admitting nor denying. My silence, in her eyes, was assent. Why are you treating me like this? She demanded. We could clearly have cooperated for mutual benefit. You ruined me. What good does that do you? Good. I laughed a little coldly. Seeing you like this is the greatest good. My words completely ignited her fury. Ethan, don't force me. Her voice suddenly turned vicious. You think you're so clean? You think I don't know your background? She closed in on me step by step, her eyes poisonous. Have you forgotten how your father ended up in prison? Have you forgotten how your sister She hadn't finished speaking. My hand had already, like lightning, clamped around her throat. In that instant, a murderous intent burst out of me that even I found terrifying. My father and sister are the softest, most untouchable vulnerabilities in my heart across both my lives. In my previous life, she used this secret to manipulate me for a full 5 years. My father was framed and jailed for commercial fraud. My young sister suffered a tremendous blow, developed severe depression, and in the end, this secret was like a poisoned barb lodged in my heart. Sophia knew, which is why she acted with impunity. She used my guilt and pain to make me work like a beast of burden, to make me willingly give her everything, all just to earn her occasional tenderness and sympathy. Sophia's face had turned purple under my grip, her feet off the ground as she struggled desperately, her eyes full of fear. I pressed my face to her ear. My voice was colder and sharper than a winter night's wind. Say one more word, just try. She opened her eyes wide in terror, her whole body trembling. I suddenly let go. She collapsed to the ground, coughing violently and gulping in air. I looked down at her from above, my gaze devoid of pity. Sophia, your ultimate card has already been played. I crouched down to meet her eyes, a cruel smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Unfortunately, it's useless against me. That secret was no longer a shackle that could threaten me, but the fuel that ignited my fire of revenge. I turned and prepared to leave. Then, as if remembering something, I stopped, took out my phone, and pressed play. From it came, clearly, everything she had just said. Have you forgotten how your father ended up in prison? Have you forgotten what happened to your sister? Sophia's face went completely bloodless. She looked at the phone in my hand in terror, as if she had seen the devil. I smiled. Guess what would happen if I sent this recording to Ryan? Told him you know damaging information about his business rival, and that this dirt is enough to utterly ruin them. Do you think he'd be interested in you again? Sophia's body trembled violently. She understood. Her final weapon, the trump card she used to threaten me, in an instant became a knife in my hand. A knife that could decide her fate at any moment. She fully realized that in this game of mutual rebirth, she had been utterly and completely defeated. Her pride in her scheming and calculations looked laughably childish in front of me. Get out. I deleted that recording in front of Sophia. Don't show up in front of me again. This is your last warning. I didn't want to use this kind of tactic against Ryan. That would be too easy for them. What I want is for them to be smashed to pieces in the field where they think themselves most triumphant. Sophia looked at me, her expression tangled. Fear, resentment, and a bewilderment she herself hadn't noticed. She scrambled and crawled away, disappearing into the night. I knew she wouldn't dare provoke me again for a long time. Having completely freed myself from the nightmare of that past life, I felt much lighter. With the money I made in the stock market, I rented a 2-bedroom apartment off campus with a very pleasant environment. I no longer wanted to live in that crowded, noisy dormitory. I needed a quiet space of my own to plot my grand revenge. On the day of the move, I asked Leo to come help. When we were done, I pushed a brand new Alienware computer in front of him. It's for you. Leo's eyes went wide. Holy crap. Ethan, this must be over $20,000. I can't accept this. Keep it. There will be many more times I need your help in the future. I didn't refuse him. In my previous life, Leo was the only person who still believed in me when everyone else abandoned me, and he even found a way to visit me in prison. I will remember this friendship for the rest of my life. Leo was so moved he had tears in his eyes, clutching the computer tower and refusing to let go. Ethan, don't you forget about your brother now that you've made it. I opened a beer for him and clinked it against mine. We're brothers. I looked at him and said seriously, but from now on, our enemies will be very powerful. Aren't you afraid? Leo drained half a bottle in one gulp and slammed the bottle down hard on the table. Afraid my ass. You point where, I strike there. Screw them. I smiled. It's great to have brothers. I started using my foresight and making some steady investments with Leo. We set up a small investment studio. With my forward-looking vision and Leo's talent in computing, Like a snowball, we quickly accumulated our seed capital. I was no longer that penniless student with nothing. I had money, dependable allies, and the confidence to go head-to-head with the Grant family. On the other side, Sophia completely disappeared from my sight. She dropped out of school. I guess she wouldn't let it end there. People like her would never be content with the status quo. Deep in her bones, she was filled with a craving for power and wealth, a craving that had turned into a pathological obsession. Sure enough, it wasn't long before I heard a piece of news from Leo. Using some technical means, Leo had been keeping an eye on Sophia's movements. He discovered that Sophia had recently hooked up with one of our college's senior professors, Professor Lewis. Professor Lewis is an authority in the field of materials science in the country. He is upright, but somewhat pedantic and old-fashioned in thought. He is currently leading a very important research project that is said to be able to break through existing technological barriers. If successful, its commercial value would be incalculable. Sophia, posing as a diligent, eager-to-learn audit student, follows Professor Lewis around all day, serving tea, organizing materials, and doting on the old professor until he is completely won over and trusts her completely. When I heard this news, I snorted. Changed to a different path? From marrying into a wealthy family to stealing academic achievements. A bit of progress, but not much. Because I know that project, in my previous life, Ryan's family's company was already very covetous of it. They once tried to buy Professor Lewis off with a large sum, but he refused in no uncertain terms. Sophia wanted to use the same old trick. Get hold of the project's core data and present it as a pledge of loyalty to get back into Ryan's view. She still didn't see clearly. She thought she was using Ryan, unaware that in someone like Ryan's eyes, she would always be nothing more than a disposable tool. Since she voluntarily stuck her neck out, then I don't mind escorting her a little further. And this time, I'll take down the Grant family behind her all in one sweep. Before I move against Sophia and the Grant family, I must first figure one thing out. My father's case. In my previous life, I was trapped and cut off from information, completely unable to investigate the truth of what happened back then. All I knew was that my father's company suffered a broken cash flow because of the failure of a key project and was ultimately taken to court on the charge of business fraud. And the so-called crucial evidence was provided by an obscure little company. Now I have money, and I have Leo, that tech genius. It's time to lift the fog from those years. I had Leo use his contacts and skills to dig deep into that small company that provided the crucial evidence back then. The investigation was harder than I had imagined. Too much time had passed. Many traces had already been erased. But Leo still found clues in some old business change records and bank statements. Behind that small company, there was unexpectedly the shadow of Ryan's father's company, Grant Group. Although it was very concealed, operated through several layers of subsidiaries and nominees, following the flow of funds ultimately pointed to the same source. Seeing the intricate relationship map Leo had compiled felt like being struck by lightning. A terrifying thought began to proliferate wildly in my mind. I immediately told Leo to change the focus of his investigation and devote all his efforts to looking into my father's failed project from back then, as well as the Grant Group's contemporaneous business activities. A few days later, when Leo placed an even more detailed report in front of me, I felt as if all the blood in my body had congealed. The truth was far more brutal than I had imagined. Back then, my father's company developed a new technology that threatened Grant Group's monopoly in a certain field. Ryan's father, Richard Grant, that tycoon, first proposed a buyout, which my father refused. Then he began to set traps. He had people pose as investors to approach my father's company, promising huge returns in Yoduk, ING my father, to put all the funds into that seemingly promising new project. At the same time, he bribed the core technicians of our company, stole our technology, and then used our own technology to fabricate evidence and turn it back on us, claiming my father's company had stolen their trade secrets. That small company that provided the key evidence was a pawn Richard set up from beginning to end, a meticulously planned commercial persecution. My father was manipulated from start to finish. Not only did he lose the company, he was also saddled with the charge of business fraud and thrown into prison. Meanwhile, Grant Group, quite naturally, swallowed up all the remaining assets of my father's company at rock-bottom prices, thoroughly consolidating its monopoly. That move was both ruthless and dirty. I sat on the couch in my rented room, watching the lights of Jing City outside the window, my body cold as a block of ice. So what about Sophia? Is Sophia's appearance also part of this scheme? I dare not think about it, yet I couldn't help but think. I remembered all the details of how I met Sophia. She always appeared when I was at my lowest and most in need of comfort. She showed an unusually keen understanding and sympathy about my father's imprisonment. She would always, casually, ask me about the past happenings in my family. A more terrible truth surfaced. Sophia getting close to me was very likely not accidental from the beginning. Perhaps from the start she was chosen by the Grant family, a pawn meant to break down my psychological defenses and completely destroy me as the son of an enemy. In my previous life, they succeeded. I thought I was saving her. I thought pouring out everything I had was a great love. It turned out it was all just a part of that father and son scheme. They not only ruined my father's career, they also intended to destroy my life, eradicate them root and stem. I thought I was on the second tier, and Sophia on the third. It turned out the Grant father and son had been standing in the atmosphere all along, looking down coldly as we ants flailed and fought in the mud. BFF. A metallic sweetness surged up my throat. I couldn't hold it back and spat a mouthful of blood that splattered the coffee table in front of me. The overwhelming hatred and sense of humiliation, like lava, threatened to consume and melt me whole. I sat alone in the empty rented room all night. At dawn, the first ray of sunlight streamed through the window. I smiled, smiling, and then the tears began to fall. It turned out that in my past life, I lived like a joke. A thoroughly stupid joke. The Grant family, is it? Richard Ryan. Very good. This time, I don't want you to be ruined. I will make your entire family pay for my father's injustice, for my sister's depression, and for my wrongful death in my past life. Burial with the dead. My revenge plan needs to be readjusted. The targets are no longer just Ryan and Sophia, but the entire Grant Group. The project between Sophia and Professor Lewis was my first point of entry. Professor Lewis was upright. Getting the core data from him was almost impossible. But Sophia was there. Sophia's greed and impatience for quick success were the biggest vulnerabilities in that plan. What I needed to do was create an opportunity for her, making her think she could easily obtain what she wanted. I found out that Professor Lewis had a habit. He locked the project's midterm reports and key data in a safe in his office, and he carried the key with him at all times. Brute force was definitely out of the question. I waited for a week. Finally got an opportunity. The whole school's electrical maintenance. The teaching building would be without power for half a day. A power outage meant the surveillance would fail. That afternoon, I wore a repairman's outfit, put on a cap and a mask, carried a toolbox, and walked straight into the office building where Professor Lewis was. I did not go to pry open the safe. I know that Professor Lewis's old-fashioned safe would show obvious marks if it were forced open. I used a more subtle method. Through Leo, I had bought a special mold on the black market that could duplicate a key for a short time. I snuck into Professor Lewis's office. My target wasn't the safe, but the old coat hanging on his rack. The spare key is in the inner pocket of the coat. I copied the safe's key as fast as I could, then put the original key back in its place. The whole process took no more than 30 seconds. I opened the safe. Inside, there was indeed a thick project report and several CDs containing core data. I didn't take anything. I only used another document I had brought to replace that report. This new report was hastily produced overnight. I had paid top experts in the industry a hefty sum to prepare it. It looked exactly like the real report, even more perfect. But inside, it hit a fatal technical trap. A huge bug that showed no problems at first, but once put into production would collapse the entire product chain. And those few disks, I also used my forged fake data to replace the most critical one. After doing all that, As I left the office, I accidentally left something by the door. A black hair clip with a slight curl. That was the style Sophia used most often. I set the net. Now I just wait for the fish to take the bait. For the next 3 days, I stayed put. I guess Sophia must be anxiously looking for an opportunity. And the opportunity I left, the office door lock I had pried and broken, was the best bait. Sure enough, on the 4th night after the power outage repair, Sophia made her move. She slipped into Professor Lewis's office under the cover of night. She probably thought the door lock was broken and that she could get in easily. She successfully took the core data from the safe, the one I had swapped. She treated it like a priceless treasure. She didn't know that what she held in her hands was not a ticket to wealth and glory, but a one-way ticket sending her and the Grant family straight to hell. The next day, Sophia couldn't wait to contact Ryan. Because of the last loss, Ryan already hated Sophia deeply. But when Sophia laid that seemingly flawless project report and data in front of him, he was tempted again. Merchants pursue profit. It's their nature. A technology capable of overturning the industry was enough to make him forget all previous grievances. He brought the company's technical team in to evaluate it. The conclusion reached was, the data is genuine and valid, the technical concept is advanced, and once realized, Grant Group will completely monopolize the entire market. Ryan was overjoyed. He accepted Sophia again and even gave her the title of project consultant, allowing her to stay by his side as a meritorious person. Sophia once more soared to the top of the tree. She was more boastful and more triumphant than the last time. When she saw me on campus, she would even stop her car, roll down the window, and look at me with a victor's pitying gaze. Ethan, I told you, you will regret this. Now, I'm a project consultant at Grant Group. And you? Still worrying about a few $1,000s a month for living expenses. The gap between people is decided the moment they make their choices. I looked at her face, which seemed to be written all over with the look of a petty person getting their way, and simply smiled at her. That smile made her inexplicably feel a flutter in her chest. She frowned slightly, said nothing more, and drove away. I watched her car disappear at the end of the road. The fish has already taken a bait. The Grant family has already boarded the express train to destruction. It's almost time a haul in the net. The Grant Group moves swiftly. After confirming the authenticity of the data, Richard personally signed off and mobilized the largest sum of the group's funds to invest in the development of this new project. They bought equipment, built factories, and recruited staff. Everything proceeded with great momentum. To seize the market advantage, Richard decided to hold an unprecedented new technology launch in 3 months to showcase their revolutionary achievement to the world. The entire business community was watching Grant Group's major move. Everyone thought the Grant family was about to launch a new business empire, and I just watched it all silently. During that time, I used all the funds I'd saved, funneled through various covert channels, and put everything into a plan to short Grant Group stock. I leveraged it tenfold. It was a high-stakes gamble. I won. The Grant family is doomed to endless disaster. My great revenge is complete, and I've achieved true financial freedom. If I lose, I will be left with nothing once more. But I know I will not lose. 3 months later, Grant Group's new technology launch was held at the most luxurious international convention and exhibition center in Jing City. The venue was packed with dignitaries. The media's flashbulbs almost lit up the entire hall. Richard stood on the stage in high spirits, delivering an inspiring and passionate speech. Ryan and Sophia, as the project's heroes, sat in the most prominent seats in the front row, basking in everyone's attention and envy. Sophia wore a bespoke evening gown, her makeup impeccable, smiling brilliantly. She felt that her life had reached its pinnacle at that very moment. She was even searching the crowd for my figure, wanting to see what kind of look of envy and jealousy this failure of mine would wear. Too bad I didn't go to the venue. I was sitting in my rented room, 3 computers set up in front of me. One was streaming the live broadcast of the launch event. One screen showed the Grant Group stock candlestick chart. Another screen showed the email inboxes of a dozen or so major media outlets and regulatory agencies that Leo was monitoring. 10 a.m. The press conference entered its most crucial segment, the core technology demonstration. Under Richard's proud introduction, the prototype of the product equipped with the new technology was rolled onto the stage. However, just as the technician pressed the start button, bang, a deafening crash. The prototype did not display the miraculous features everyone had anticipated. Instead, right before the onlookers, it exploded on the spot. Sparks flew and black smoke billowed. The venue instantly descended into chaos. Screams and gasps rang out throughout the convention center. That fatal technical flaw, that bug I had planted, was exposed in the most devastating way at the moment I had preset, laid bare before all the media and investors. On the live feed, Richard's face went deadly pale in an instant. Ryan and Sophia also sprang up from their seats, faces full of disbelief. But that was only the beginning. Just as the Grant household was scrambling because of a technical mishap, another blockbuster bomb detonated, blowing up the entire public opinion arena. I anonymously packaged and sent to those dozen or so media outlets and regulators all the evidence I had compiled about how Grant Group framed and set up my father, along with their other business crimes over the years. Industry titan revealed to have mob-like origins. The untold rise of Grant Group exposed. Shocking scandal. Grant Group plagued by business crime allegations. Founder Richard may face prison. Technology launch ends in explosion. Concrete evidence of business crimes. Is this the end for Grant Group? One shocking report after another spread like a virus across the internet. Public opinion erupted completely. The stock price of Grant Group fell in response. Less than 10 minutes after the market opened, it hit the daily limit down straight away. Countless bills of exchange surged in like snowflakes, yet no one took them. Immediately after, partners announced the end of their cooperation, drawing clear boundaries. Major banks came overnight to demand repayment of loans. The building was on the verge of collapse. On the live stream screen, Richard looked at the flood of news on his phone. His body trembled. He spat a mouthful of blood and fell down stiffly. In an instant, Ryan fell from heaven into hell. He stared at his unconscious father lying on the ground, at the chaos in the audience, at the stream of negative news flashing on his phone. He was completely stunned. He couldn't believe any of it. He frantically searched the crowd for Sophia. He was sure it was this woman who had ruined him once again. As for Sophia, she was already pale with fright and vanished in the chaos. I stared at the bright green, plummeting line on the computer screen and turned off the live stream. I picked up my phone and sent Leo a message. Close the net. Ryan spent the 3 hardest days in despair and confusion. His father had a stroke and was hospitalized. The company was sealed off, bank accounts frozen, and everyone he knew avoided him. He went from a lofty golden boy to a beaten dog that everyone was shouting at. After sorting out the ins and outs of everything, he finally directed all his suspicions at me. The inconspicuous poor student who had remained unervingly calm from start to finish. Ethan Johnson. He remembered that meaningful smile I gave in the Western restaurant. And he remembered my warning to Sophia, wait and see. He remembered Leo's accidental bragging at the bar. Everything fell into place. He finally understood that from the very beginning he had fallen into a carefully laid trap. And he and his family were nothing but prey in that trap. He already had nothing left. A person with nothing is the most terrifying because he can become like a maddened, trapped beast, recklessly seeking revenge. He sent people to knock Leo unconscious and abduct him. Then he sent me a photo. In the photo, Leo is tied to a chair, blood at the corner of his mouth, unconscious. The background is an abandoned factory. Immediately following is a text message. Ethan, if you want your brother to stay alive, come alone to the abandoned steel mill in the southern suburbs of Jing City. Don't try any tricks, or I'll have him buried with you. The moment I saw the photo, a towering rage and murderous intent nearly overwhelmed my reason. Ryan, he dared lay a hand on someone of mine? I didn't call the police. I knew that calling the police would only enrage this already madman and put Leo in even greater danger. This is a grudge between him and me. It has to be settled by us alone. I drove there alone. The abandoned steel mill was filled with the smells of rust and dust. I walked into the empty workshop and immediately saw Leo tied up in the center and Ryan standing beside him holding a steel pipe. Ryan's eyes were bloodshot. He looked gaunt and deranged. "Ethan, you're finally here." He saw me and let out a hiss shout, his voice filled with a bone-deep hatred. "It was you. You did all of this." I looked at him calmly, as if I were looking at a scheming little clown. "Yes," I admit calmly. "You only just realized that? You're even dumber than I thought." My composure completely enraged him. "Ah!" He roared like a crazed beast, brandishing a steel pipe as he charged at me. "I'll kill you. I'll kill you, you scum." The steel pipe, whistling through the air, came crashing down toward my head. I ducked to the side. The heavy pipe slammed into the corrugated metal wall behind me with a loud bang. After months of planned training, my body was no longer the frail scholar I had been in my previous life. I dodged his attack, stepped forward in a single bound, and kicked him in the abdomen. Ryan was driven back by my kick, stumbling into a pillar, but he soon got up again, eyes reddened, and lunged at me once more. In the abandoned factory, we erupted into a savage, primal fight. There were no techniques, only the purest force and hatred. In my past life, I was trampled under his feet, scenes of wanton humiliation flashing through my mind. "Lowly people, how dare you compete with me?" Those words echoed in my ears like a curse. Humiliation, resentment, rage, every emotion at that moment transformed into the strength in my fists. I punch, pounded hard on his face. This punch is for my dad. This punch is for my sister. This punch is for the life I unjustly lost in my previous life. I went mad, unleashing all the hatred I had accumulated over 2 lifetimes. I beat Ryan until he couldn't fight back, his face bruised and bloody, his mouth full of blood. He was finally scared. Terror showed in his eyes. Don't hit me. I was wrong. I was wrong." He began to beg for mercy. I did not stop. This confrontation was not only for revenge, but also to completely shatter the demons of my past life. I had to utterly crush him, both physically and mentally. I kicked Ryan in the knee. He could no longer hold himself up and went down on his knees with a thud. The steel pipe in his hand clattered to the ground. I walked over and picked up the steel pipe. Then I put my foot on his hand, just like he did to me in my previous life. I bent over, looking down at his face that was no longer recognizable as human. In my past life, you stepped on my hand like that and told me what it means to be an inferior person. My voice was very soft, yet filled with endless chill. Now how does it feel? Ryan completely collapsed. He lay on the ground like a dog with its spine broken, wailing and crying loudly. "I was wrong. Ethan, I really was wrong. Please, spare me. I'll give you all my money." I looked at his pathetic state and felt no satisfaction, only endless disgust. Just then, a sharp female voice suddenly came from the shadows of the factory building. "Ethan, go to hell." I spun around sharply. I saw Sophia holding a sharp shard of glass, like a madwoman, rushing out from the shadows. Her target was the back of my neck. She had probably followed Ryan all the way, hoping to reap the rewards of someone else's work. She thought I had subdued Ryan and had let her guard down, which she believed was the best moment to launch a surprise attack. She wanted to kill me. She believed that as long as I was dead, everything she had done would be settled once and for all. "It's all your fault. You ruined everything for me." She looked like a raving madwoman. Her twisted face appeared especially ferocious in the dim light. At the critical moment, I did not dodge. I made a move that no one expected. I suddenly kicked Ryan, who was kneeling at my feet, toward Sophia. Tui, a shard of sharp glass plunged deep into Ryan's back. He widened his eyes in disbelief, slowly turning his head to look at the woman behind him whom he had once loved and once hated. Sophia was also taken aback. She stared at the glass protruding from Ryan's body, at the blood seeping from his chest, her mind completely blank. She hadn't expected it to end like this. Wah wah. The shrill wail of sirens grew louder, approaching from afar. Before I arrived, I had used Leo's phone to call the police and activate real-time location tracking. I never fight an unprepared battle. The police burst in quickly. What they saw was Ryan lying in a pool of blood, barely clinging to life. Sophia stood frozen on the spot, holding the bloody murder weapon, her face smeared with blood. And I, along with Leo, whom I had just untied, were completely unscathed, the victims. Sophia herself had drawn the most ironic full stop to this farce. She meant to kill me, but accidentally killed Ryan. She thought she was the hawk, unaware that all along she had only been a pawn on my chessboard, a piece without its own will. I watched Sophia being taken away by the police, her eyes hollow and her expression vacant and foolish. Inwardly, I felt nothing. Ryan was gravely injured. Although he was saved, damage to his spinal nerves condemned him to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. As for Sophia, convicted of intentionally injuring someone with conclusive evidence, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Grant Group completely collapsed. Richard learned in prison that his son had been disabled. That night, he suddenly suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and could not be saved. He died. Everyone who participated in framing my father received the outcome they deserved. I submitted solid evidence to the court and officially applied for a retrial to clear my father's name. Months later, my father was released after being found not guilty. The day I went to pick him up, he was standing at the prison gate, looking at the sunlight outside. Much age, his hair completely white. When he saw me, his lips trembled. He couldn't utter a word. He just held me, tears streaming down his face. My father and I were finally reunited. As for my sister, after learning that our father was released and our enemy had been brought to justice, she cooperated with psychological treatment, and her condition improved day by day. Leo and I used the first pot of gold we made shorting Grant Group to start our own tech company. Thanks to the technological directions I had mapped out for the next decade plus in my head and Leo's top-tier technical skills, our company, like a dark horse, quickly gained a foothold in the industry. Everything was moving in a good direction. A year later, I went to see Sophia once. I watched her through a thick layer of visitation glass. She was wearing a prison uniform, with short hair and no makeup. She had completely lost her former vitality, her gaze hollow like that of a walking corpse. When she saw me, the murkiness in her eyes finally stirred. She picked up the phone, her voice hoarse. "Did you ever love me?" she asked. I looked at her as if she were a complete stranger. I thought for a moment and answered seriously. "I loved you in my past life." George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. You? Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. Aren't you allergic to mangoes? I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing. I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. When did you start smoking? I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor. I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level. Frank's eyes widened. You mean, she's not Mary? I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up. 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. Mary is an only child. We all know that. I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. George, Mary is going to have a baby, my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that? I managed to ask. Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life. My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. Mary, could you come here for a moment? I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. Did you forget about this? I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. George, I can explain. Explain what? Explain that you're not Mary at all. Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. What's going on with you two? Mom, take a look at this. I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. What's going on? Mary, you can't have children. Of course she can, I sneered, because she's not Mary at all. My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. What nonsense are you talking about? I can explain. She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly. My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. George, you're being too paranoid. My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her. Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen. Tears welled up in her eyes. Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby. I looked at her face, identical to Mary's. Yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. All right, I believe you. I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the 3rd day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. Thereafter your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hired to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. "It's taking too long," Tom said irritably. "How much longer until he sells the painting?" "Don't worry," she soothed him. "I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money." "You're really pregnant?" "That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly." "Does Annie know the truth?" "She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help." I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. "You don't actually have feelings for George, do you?" Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. "It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word." "Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it." Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. "This is a surprise I prepared for you," I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. "To celebrate the new life we're about to begin." She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. "It's beautiful, thank you." She smiled as she prepared to put it on. "Wait," I stopped her. "Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back?" She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved." She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. "See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace." I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, "After all, this is your final design." Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. "Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light." On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. "The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon," I replied with a smile. "This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it." Mary immediately chimed in. "Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future." I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. "Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting." Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, "Mary. This is my wife, Mary." I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. Mr. George, a stranger's voice called from behind. Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared. He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. And you are? I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area, she explained with a smile. I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit. Thank you. I nodded. I'll be leaving soon. She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive. It's blood amber, I explained, a very rare gemstone. I know, she said softly, top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare. I looked at her in surprise. You know a lot about jewelry? She smiled. I study jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here. For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting? She asked. My wife, I replied. She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, the pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. New friend? He asked me quietly. Mary's student, I explained simply. Very talented. Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the 3 of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. Mr. George, Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. What is it? After you finished the pursuit, what are you planning to create next? The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since the pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. It might take some time to find a new direction. Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. Maybe, Nicole said softly, you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further. I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. You mean, creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry? Exactly. Nicole said excitedly, your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect. The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, I have to confess something. I looked at her in confusion. I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you, she said candidly. I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, see, I knew you would find a new direction. When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. Am I really up to the task? She asked me in the studio. You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone, I assured her. That's exactly what I need. In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it. At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all right, I said with a smile. I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, Professor George, may I ask you a personal question? What is it? When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole. I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." "How is your sister's illness?" I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. "You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true." "Yes," she nodded. "My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes, even though I may never be able to." I was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, in a way, your appearance actually helped me." "What do you mean?" "It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward." I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. "I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare," she said at last. "I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well." As she left, she handed me a small package. "These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them." Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. "You forgave her?" Nicole was a bit surprised. "Not exactly forgiveness," I said thoughtfully. "It's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. "The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design." "Perhaps," I said. "Everyone has the possibility of being reborn." On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. "Without you, this series might never have come into being." "It was your philosophy that guided us, Teacher Nicole," she replied modestly. "I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger." In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. "Are you really going to just let her go like this?" "What do you mean?" I pretended not to understand. "Don't play dumb, man," Frank said bluntly. "You have feelings for her. That's obvious." "That's just professional rapport," I argued. "Is that so?" Frank looked at me meaningfully. "Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France?" I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. "I know what you're worried about." Frank lowered his voice. "You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you?" I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. "Mary has been gone for 3 years now." Frank gently patted my shoulder. "She would want you to be happy." After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. "Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months." Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. "This experience has meant so much to me." "I should be thanking you," I said sincerely. "Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed." We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. "My flight is the morning after tomorrow," Nicole finally said. "I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other." 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. "Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there." She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. "Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity." "What is it?" "I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works." She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. "I didn't know that," I said in surprise. "I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion." Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. "But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you." I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond. She gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, You might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence. No matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, We'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.